Alrighty, everybody. What is going on, y'all? Welcome, welcome. Good to see you guys back for another stream. Here, let's go ahead and pull up my stream here so I can see what y'all are talking about in there. Well, what's up, y'all? Good to see you. Hope everyone is doing well. We got ourselves quite a heck of an update for you since yesterday. I was going to go live earlier, but I decided that one live stream should be good enough for today. But we got a lot of activity coming up. A lot of it. We actually have now 5 days back to back to back to back to back worth of severe weather. It is going to be quite an active period coming up here. Anyways, what's up, y'all? What's up, Rochi? Good to see you. Saying, hey, Andrew, hope all is well. I know it's off topic, relates to the weather. It got a dusting to an inch of snow in my area, mainly on grassy areas. Luckily, it didn't cover the roads and sidewalks. Gotcha. Good to see you, Rochi. What's up, Vivid? Saying hi. What's up? What's up? Weston, what's up? Good to see you. Colorado says, I'm in Dallas. Thanks for all you do. You're very welcome, my friend. And please be careful. Dallas is going to be one of the areas that's going to get a lot of potential severe weather. So, yeah, the main thing is that they've actually updated, or they've added a lot of activity since. Oh, oops, is the audio going through? Actually, looks like we're good. Okay, sorry, I thought that the audio was bleeding through on because the YouTube was playing in the background, so I wasn't sure if it was or not. Anyways, but yeah, Dallas is going to be one of the areas that could get pretty active. So it really starts tomorrow. Tomorrow we do have a little level 1 marginal risk here. This just includes a bit of western Oklahoma, a little bit of Kansas, including Wichita, and portions out there of the eastern panhandle of Texas. So we do have a little bit of severe weather here for tomorrow. Now, tornadoes not expected tomorrow. Gusty winds not even really expected. Just a little bit of hail potential overall here for tomorrow. But that is not the big stuff. The big stuff takes place after. Anyways, let's see. What's up, Twilight? Good to see ya. Saying good evening, everyone. Hi, Andrew. What's up? Good to see ya. Aaron says, what happens if it gets stronger? Then storms could be more severe, potentially. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Weston says, I know we're getting started, but do I think Friday might go enhanced? Given kinematics and, the moisture advection that we have, it's possible. It's definitely possible. We'll do a little bit more of a deep dive into models here in a little bit. I just want to kind of go over the whole outlook first. We're going to talk about the main risks and stuff like that in the beginning. And then we'll do some breakdown stuff. But yeah, so like I said, tomorrow we have a level 1 threat. So then we go into day 2, or sorry, in this case, day 3. So this would be on Wednesday. So Wednesday is the day when everything really starts to kick off here. So we do have a level 2 threat for severe weather. It's a slight risk here, which does include the Dallas-Fort Worth area here. So definitely need to be weather aware here for the Dallas region on Wednesday. It goes into eastern Oklahoma, including areas like Hugo, western Arkansas, including the Fort Smith area, out to by Russellville, Fayetteville. So that is in the level 2 slight risk. Now, as of right now, there's no breakdown probability for tornadoes, large hail damaging winds quite yet. But we do have ourselves a level 2 threat here for Wednesday. So here's where things get kind of crazy. So then we go into Thursday. So the Storm Prediction Center has now issued another area of concern here for Thursday, which includes portions of western Oklahoma, including Lawton, as well as portions of the north central side of Texas, including portions of the Panhandle just outside of Amarillo. Although I do want to keep an eye on Amarillo as well, because you're right there on the line essentially. Same thing for Lubbock area, but this does include areas of San Angelo. We do have Wichita Falls included here in the risk here for Thursday. So then we go into Friday. Now Friday's where, in my opinion, probably one of the biggest days is going to be. I think Friday's going to have one of the biggest potential. The reason I say that, and we're actually going to look at this in the models here in a little bit, is because on Friday, the other days are not as significant because Friday, it seems like there's going to be a lot more stronger wind shear. Now, what is wind shear? Wind shear is basically just wind speeds in directions at certain altitude. So the winds are always different at every level of the atmosphere, from surface to upper levels. So But the thing is that on Friday, it looks like we're going to have some really, really strong winds, especially in our lower levels, which could enhance storm structures, get some good organization of storm structures, going on, as well as, potentially even tornadic activity, which we're going to have to get into. But anyways, here for Friday, once again, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, including Wichita Falls, is in the risk here in that 15%, cuts straight through Oklahoma, including Norman, areas of Lawton, Tulsa, really good chunk of Oklahoma here is in the risk on Friday as well. We also have eastern Kansas, including the Wichita, Topeka area, going into Missouri for the Kansas City region here, and even up now as high up to the north as lower Iowa. Yesterday, the cutoff point was Kansas and Missouri. Now it actually extends even further up into Iowa. Now, we are likely going to be seeing a lot of changes on these outlooks over the next few days. They're going to look a little different every time we do an update here. And the reason is just because, some new areas are added into concern and some areas could be taken out. But majority, if you're in the risk area now, you should definitely be monitoring it closely. I mean, even close to the outlook area should still monitor this as well. There could be some forms of impacts even for other people just outside of the risk here. But anyways, it ain't over yet. So that is on Friday. So then we go into Saturday. SPC put a hot dog risk here for the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Again, I tell you what, man, Dallas-Fort Worth is kind of in like the hot spot for the next several days, which is definitely pretty interesting because, it's not just one day. It's not just 2 days. It is like several days worth of severe weather potential here. So this is here for Saturday. Now, Sunday, we don't have anything, which is good. And, of course, Monday, we don't have anything. So definitely need our folks in the Dallas-Fort Worth area to be monitoring this very, very closely. It is definitely going to be quite an active period this week here for severe weather. And one thing I do want to say here is the fact that it's literally like, we just hit March, right? We literally just hit March. It is only March 2nd, and look what Mother Nature throws at us. It's like, oh, here's a wall of just day after day after day of, severe weather and stuff. Anyways, Colorado, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you so much for that. Huge, huge shout. I'm going to go ahead and heart that for you. I really appreciate it. Colorado, say, for your coffee or Red Bull fund, you will be busy. I speak for everyone here. You are appreciated and loved. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Saying I'm in Dallas watching and waiting for it to unfold. Well, first of all, once again, Colorado, thank you seriously so much for all the kind love and support. I really appreciate that. That helps me out a ton. And, I'm going to be here for you guys. I'm going to be really busy this week, but we'll be sure to give you guys a lot of updates, and we'll be here to do some coverages and stuff like that for you guys. But once again, Colorado, thank you so much for the 10. I really appreciate it. Please be careful out there. Like I was saying, Dallas area is going to be one of the regions where, we could have some pretty big impacts here, multiple days worth of severe weather potential and stuff. So yeah, we're going to definitely need to be actively watching it. So, but anyways, once again, thank you so much. Rochi says it's a big hot dog. Yeah, day 6 does look like a pretty big hot dog, doesn't it? We got ourselves a hot dog risk on Saturday. So once again, includes the Dallas-Fort Worth area here. So here's day 3. This is Wednesday, in which you can see, once again, Dallas-Fort Worth in the risk here. Thursday, the risk is just outside Dallas-Fort Worth. Friday, Dallas-Fort Worth is included again. And, of course, Saturday, Dallas-Fort Worth is included yet again. So Dallas area really, really needs to watch out for this because, like I said, it's going to be multiple, days worth of severe weather here. So anyways, let's see here. Evan says, what is my thoughts on Southern Illinois for Wednesday? Let's see, a sneaky triple point setup seems possible in the latest HRRR. Yeah, so that's the thing about this type of system here. Let's actually get the models here. We're gonna bring up HRRR. We'll show you guys kind of what we're in the run for. But you said for Southern Illinois. I'm actually gonna bring up the latest. We almost have the 0 UTC run, but not quite. So let's bring up the latest 18 Zulu HRRR run here. So was there any particular day? Oh, you said Wednesday. Okay. Well, we should be within boundary of, or we should be within reasonable range for Wednesday here, in the models. Actually, I might need to look at the. Let's actually hop over to RRFS because it goes a little bit further out here. So it's also a high res model too. So Here for Wednesday, it definitely looks like we're going to be seeing quite a bit of convection. This model in particular, this run, also shows quite a bit of convection, maybe even pretty early in the morning. This is showing at 10 a.m. on Wednesday that we might actually be seeing maybe a little bit of storm activity popping off here across southern Illinois. And as we go into the afternoon and evening, there could be maybe a few more scattered strong to potentially severe storms here. Let me actually grab a sounding from this model. Now, obviously, just a bit of a disclaimer. Remember, this is one model. This is one model run. This is also one sounding here. So, this is 1 point out of millions to really take here into consideration. But anyways, so this shows, this is for 12 p.m. on Wednesday for southern Illinois. I mean, you can see that we have a pretty unstable atmosphere, especially from our mid to our upper levels. The only problem is here on the surface. The dew points are within range. Upper 50 dew points will work. It's applying enough moisture to get, the storms really going and stuff. One big thing, though, is the wind shear. Now, the wind shear, it doesn't seem anything extreme per se. But it does seem like, we are going to see, enough wind shear to at least sustain good convection. Like I mentioned, the wind shear is very important for organizing your storm structures, like your updraft and your downdraft within the storms, keeps them separated so you're not pulling in cold air if there was no wind shear. If there was no wind shear, the storm that rises, it starts off as the updraft stage, the storm rises, goes up into the environment, and if there was no wind to kind of arc the trajectory of the intake, that it would just collapse right on itself and it would just kill out the storm. Because at the moment it starts pulling in cold air, that would be pretty bad. Anyways, off topic though, but yeah, we do have a good amount of wind shear here, so it should at least sustain some pretty good thunderstorm activity for probably a couple hours here from the way that the models do have it here. But anyways, yeah, we'll definitely need to keep an eye on it. It looks like pretty early morning convection. I'm a little bit concerned about the capping inversion. There could be a bit of a cap in place here. We'll have to see, but models obviously still show convection going through, and then maybe even some more convection on Thursday here. But anyways, but hopefully that helps. Yeah, we'll have to just kind of see. Let's see. Haley says, what's the possibility for Friday in Missouri? So yeah, you're up by the Kansas City area. So for Thursday, we have not a threat here for, let's see. Oh, you said for Friday, my bad. Yeah, Friday we do have the 15% risk area here for severe weather. So yeah, we do need to keep an eye out there for potential severe weather activity here. At the point where we are for Friday, it's still considered the long-range guidance because we don't have any short-range model data as of right now. But I can pull up the long-range guidance here. This is from the from the GFS. We'll hop to right around 7 p.m. Actually, we'll go a little earlier. We'll go right around 4 p.m. or so, and we'll grab a sounding kind of out there by the Kansas City area, just so we can kind of see what's going on. So this is just a bit of a heads up for our Kansas City area people. But anyways, so yeah, in this particular sounding, I do see a little bit of a problem here for storms getting going. I don't know. You can kind of see this little bulge here. So one thing I want to go ahead and point out really quickly, we're looking at the temperature profile through the atmosphere. You go up on the y-axis here. This is the altitude, and the x-axis at the bottom. This is the temperature. So the problem is for the warm air to continue rising, the environment around it needs to be colder than the rising air itself. And the problem is that in this particular sounding, the air is rising vertically because it's warm air rising, but it does reach an environment where the air around the rising warm air is actually kind of warmer than the environment. So that could prevent convection from continuing, which could prevent storms from just forming in general. So we'll have to see, though. We'll definitely keep an eye on it. It's definitely quite an interesting setup here. It shows like the GFS maybe finally, that cap breaking as we go into the late evening maybe. But yeah, it's a little hard to say, especially with these the long range guidance. It's not really the best on the micro scale of things. This is GFS and just global models like the Euro is really more on the macro scale, the big picture, rather than the micro scale models or the the short range models like the HRRR. These are better for more of the the more higher higher resolution. It's better for that. And unfortunately, we get most of those high res models just before the event happens. So we'll have to see. But, if we can somehow break that cap, then yeah, Storm should be able to fire overall. Anyways, and a big thing for that would be hopefully no cloud cover. Well, for the Storm's sake, hopefully there's no cloud cover before the event starts. So, because that could actually prevent the ground from heating up enough to break that cap. Anyways, Aaron says, can they upgrade to level 3 out of 5 for Friday? I have WeatherWise app. So it depends. Let's actually hop over here. We'll bring up the model. We'll bring up the instability. I'm going to pull up the most unstable cape. So this is our instability, essentially. And you can see that we have a lot of unstable air actually working all the way up towards the upper Midwest here, which is pretty interesting. So this is here for Friday evening, you guys can see, which, there's a pretty good amount of unstable air, through a lot of the Midwest, the Ohio Valley even, but some of the heaviest of it's down by like Texas, Oklahoma. One of the big things for Friday is the kinematics. Comparing to the other days, it seems like Friday might have the greatest amount of wind shear from what we are looking at here. So let's actually bring up the 850 millibar wind speed. So you can really see, especially over the Midwest here, how we have some pretty strong lower level wind shear. This is actually going to be pretty important for, like I said, some storm, good storm structure development, keeping things, organized and stuff like that. And also, a strong lower level jet could be a concern for, tornadoes and stuff like that. So, definitely you can see how it overlaps our instability there. So that lower level wind shear is going to be quite strong from what it looks like on Friday. So the mixture of, a relative unstable environment plus strong wind shear is usually not the best of combinations here, for severe weather potential. I'm going to go ahead and grab another sounding here, and we'll see. And you can actually notice, one of the big things here, this is actually a pretty good sounding, showing some really strong winds throughout the lower atmosphere. And one of the things, if you look at the hodograph in the top right, you see how it looks like a little bit of an arch in a way. So that's telling us that we have a veering wind profile in the lower atmosphere, telling us that the wind direction is changing and the wind speeds are increasing with altitude. So that sudden change in wind direction and an increase in wind speed can actually create some spin in the atmosphere, in which that could create some concerns for tornadoes. If you did have storms that develop, which, given the thermodynamic structure here, it looks like we're in an environment where storms will absolutely exist. Once again, good moisture, amounts here, lower 60 dew points, supplying great moisture to these storms here, enough instability to allow for a pretty tall vertical column. It seems like this could be a bit of a concerning environment. And if you're wondering about an enhanced risk, I'm not the Storm Prediction Center. I can't tell you yes or no. As of now, they don't. So we'll go with what they say. But I wouldn't say it's impossible. But I can't tell you flat out, yes, they will do it, or no, they won't. That's strictly up to the SPC. It's strictly up to them. And they're the ones you really need to follow along with, the SPC. Obviously, I relay a lot of the data from the Weather Service and stuff like that, just to help get the information out there and stuff, and kind of add a little bit of context to what's going on. But it's like, risk-wise, outlook-wise, always go with the Weather Service and, the Hurricane Center if we were talking about tropics and stuff like that. Anyways. Let's see. Can we see a hodograph for Fort Worth, Texas on Friday? Of course. Yeah, I could do that. So given, further south latitude you go, the further you are away from that low, which, the closer you are to the low, the stronger the winds are. But if we look at the sounding right between Dallas and Fort Worth on Friday, this is 7 p.m., we still do have about 30 to 40 knots of lower level wind shear, which I'm going to go ahead and grab. We're going to pull up the hodograph here. So one thing I do notice is we might have a little bit of a capping inversion. We'll have to see how that plays out. But but we do have enough instability to say if storms do occur. to be pretty decent, and we have enough wind shear to keep them going. If you look at the hodographs, they do have a little bit of an arch to them. There is a little bit of veering wind shear, but the wind shear is a little bit weaker further south, like we mentioned. Being further away from that low, the wind shear is weaker. But I mean, once again, I mean, this looks like a decent little environment. If storms can fire off in this, it looks pretty decent. Our moisture levels, mid 60 dew points, perfect. That's a good amount of moisture advection. Being especially close to the Gulf like that really supplies a good amount of warmth and good moisture content. Lapse rates are actually really steep. So basically, the rate at which temperature change over altitude, that is your lapse rates, and they seem to be pretty pretty steep. You can see our little panel here showing us at least 7 degrees Celsius per kilometer, which that's pretty steep lapse rates, in which that could really allow for some decent decent buoyancy within these storms. What I mean by buoyancy is the warm air rising up into the cooler environment. The steeper the lapse rates, the stronger the buoyancy typically is. And stuff like that. But I'm not going to get too much into the details. I know a lot of you guys would like to hear it, but some of you guys would probably bore y'all to death, so I'm not trying to do that. Try to keep it mixed. But anyways, yeah, I mean, it looks decent. Tornadoes could be a concern. Yeah, we'll have to just watch and see how the short range models and stuff, because this is still 100 hours out, which once we get to the point of like at least 48 hours out, whenever the HRRR really starts getting a hold of it, then yeah, we'll have to really look at it a lot closer. Anyways, let's see. Aaron says, okay, thank you. No problem. You're very welcome. What's up, Jonathan? Good to see ya. Calvin says, good evening, Andrew. Good evening, Calvin. Good to see ya. Hope you're doing good, my friend. But anyways, yeah, definitely, I think personally Friday is going to be one of the bigger days for severe weather. You can see that it is the day with the strongest wind shear out of them all. Out of every day here, the Friday's threat seems to be the biggest. The strongest lower level wind shear, in which that's really going to be playing a pretty big role. One thing I want to look at here is our dew points, in which the dew points, as you guys, I've been talking about this a lot lately. Dew points is basically measuring the total amount of moisture, in the air. The higher your dew point, the more moisture content there is total. So the higher the number of the dew point, the more moisture in theory you have. So if I was to bring up our dew points here, typically for severe weather, you want your dew points in the 60s or greater, supplying a good adequate amount of moisture to the storms. Anything lower can get a little iffy. 50s can work sometimes, but anything lower than that, it gets a little iffy. But anyways, look, we have dew points in the 60s advecting all the way up to the Ohio Valley, which is definitely not going to be any lacking per se. There's a lot of moisture available. And so basically what's going on here is that we're having a lot of moisture coming up from the Gulf here. So, the Gulf supplying a lot of, moisture-rich airs, because obviously it's a big body of water. The sun beats down on it, evaporates it, turns the liquid into a gas through sublimation. And basically which, that alone transports water vapor into the country. Remember, water vapor is a gas, so it goes from liquid to gas as it evaporates, and then it's in the warm air, and as that warm air goes up into the cooler environment, the air cools down. The water vapor can't go anywhere because the air is basically what is it? The air that's rising, the warm air that's rising, can hold more moisture than the cold air around it in the upper atmosphere. So basically, it cools down the air. The warm air can no longer hold that moisture, and essentially, it turns back into liquid water and falls as rain. But anyways, I'm not trying to get too in depth here, but just know this is supplying a good amount of moisture to the system here. We can already kind of start to see that happening now. If we play over the next few days, you can see that that moisture slowly advecting north, slowly creeping north. Everything really comes together on Friday as we actually start to get a little bit of a dry air mass kind of pushing against, all this northerly advection. You can see the gradient here for Friday evening. I mean, look at the difference. Western Oklahoma dew points in the, the teens. I mean, If you're talking the panhandle, maybe even the single digits. And if you go on the eastern side, dew points are in the 60s. So huge moisture difference between that little distance. So that's definitely pretty interesting. Definitely going to be quite an aggressive change. Quite an aggressive gradient there. Anyways, let's see. Aaron wants to know: can Illinois get tornadoes? Are you talking about out of the event here or in general? I mean, yeah, obviously, Illinois could get tornadoes, but if you're talking about like out of this event, which I'm sure you probably are, Friday, possibly. Here, let's pull the environment here. Let's go ahead and grab a sounding. This is 7 p.m. on Friday, just to kind of see what the environment looks like. So yeah, the air parcel have a little bit of a hard time rising through the lower environment here. Winds are not super strong. The kinematics are a little bit on the weaker side. Let's go back maybe to 1 p.m. We'll go ahead and grab another sounding from the same area here. Yeah, the atmosphere looks better. The parcel would rise more freely. Still, though, the kinematics are not super strong. So basically just the winds throughout the atmosphere are not really that strong. I mean, literally from the ground to the upper levels, the winds don't really exceed 40 knots, which is very interesting. A pretty weak environment for wind shear. So this would probably not, I mean, if any tornado happened, it would be weak. It wouldn't be anything big, for this particular hour. This is 1 p.m. on Friday. I think it did show a little bit of convection in the later morning, but the wind shear shouldn't honestly be any different here. Yeah. It definitely looks pretty weak overall. So, I mean, if we did get tornadoes, they would be weak. But, the likelihood would also be a little bit lower as well. Let's see. Hogpulse says classic. Yeah, it is definitely kind of a classic little spring setup here, isn't it? It's not quite spring, but I really find it so funny, to an extent, how the fact that we have March that literally just happened. It literally just turned March, and we already have lined up severe weather. You're waiting for us. It's like, yeah, welcome back. Nah, but I'm definitely, I don't like the tornadoes and the damage and stuff that the storms cause, but, being back in severe weather season, it makes me happy. It does. Anyways, Gabriel says Friday has an enhanced or greater risk potential if the NAM's solution sticks. Don't ever go with the NAM. They're getting rid of it for a reason. It's very outdated. Plus, you know how the NAM is. Yeah, NAM is the never accurate model. NAM. Yeah. Anyways, how about Northern Indiana for the day also, says Jameson? So, yeah, the moisture advection isn't as strong for Northern Indiana as opposed to areas deep to the south. So if you're talking Friday, we'll go ahead and let's just grab 7 p.m. sounding, right there in the top middle portion. If I was to grab a sounding here, yeah, so I mean, there's a little bit of instability. The wind shear actually in this case looks pretty good. I ain't gonna lie. I mean, look at that curvy photograph, the kinematics aren't, extremely crazy, but strong enough to where the wind shear alone could support tornadoes. However, there's a bit of a problem. The problem being is that these storms could be a little elevated, meaning the storm base is pushed up a little bit higher, which, you need a pretty low storm base for tornadic activity here. Here, let's actually turn this to freedom units for a minute. Hold up. Let me, I forgot where's it at? It should be right in front of me. Where's the conversion here? Hold up. I literally just had it not too long ago. Is it down further, maybe? No? Well, anyways, but there is a little bit of a little bit of an inversion here towards the surface, which, we'll have to look out there for. It could be a little harder for storms firing off, but we'll see. Well, like I said, I really want to see whenever the short range models really come into view, like the HRRR, because, we are still talking 100 hours out for this particular day on Friday. So, yeah, we'll see. Calvin says just got a new laptop today. Is Houston, Texas in the clear of the threats for severe weather this week? So let's actually hop back to the risk areas here. We'll go ahead and start over again from day 3, which is on Wednesday. So, yeah, Houston's fine on Wednesday. The main area of concern for Wednesday is going to be for the Dallas-Fort Worth area, eastern Oklahoma, just shy south of Tulsa here, east of Ardmore. The main area is here for like Hugo, Antlers. Then it goes in towards like Fort Smith, Arkansas, Russellville area. So that is for Wednesday. Now, Thursday, Houston's fine, but the threats shifted a little bit west here for Thursday. This actually includes areas of Wichita Falls, Abilene, Texas, shy of Lubbock, San Angelo, going up in towards Oklahoma out by Lawton, some of these regions here. So we do have a 15% risk on day 4. Then we go into Friday. So Friday, that's where things start to get pretty nasty. In which, like I said, Friday's going to be the biggest day of them all, I believe. Given the fact that we have much more amplified wind shear, instability still very, much in place, as well as still a really good amount of moisture advection. Good moisture content on the surface could really allow for those storms to really have quite a bit of fuel. But we do have, that risk. It does not include Houston. But yeah, for Friday, the main area is the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Wichita Falls, going up into Oklahoma, including a lot of the state, Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Lawton, these areas in the risk here, going up into Kansas for the Wichita, Topeka area, going into Missouri, Kansas City area, all the way up towards northern Missouri, and even southern Iowa in the risk out there by areas by Osceola, Bloomfield. Some of those regions on the far southern side of Iowa is going to be in the risk here for Friday. But it's not over yet, because then we go into Saturday. We got that hot dog risk here for Saturday, which we could see the Fort Worth area, Dallas-Fort Worth area, once again, in the risk for severe weather. It does go in towards San Angelo, Abilene, Texas, out there by Texarkana, a little bit of southwestern Arkansas, southeastern Oklahoma City. I literally looked at Oklahoma City, and I said it out loud. I do that so much. I hate to admit how much I do that. If I'm, talking and I look at something, like, for example, Oklahoma City, I say that in my head, and it comes out loud. So, yeah. Anyways, not Oklahoma City on Saturday, but southeastern Oklahoma State is going to be included here. Anyways. All right, so what's the flooding potential for the zip code? Well, let's see here. So yeah, we don't. Here, actually, we'll bring up our overall flooding outlook here. Here, let's see excessive rainfall risk. Here we go. So day 2, day 3, day 4 doesn't look like you have anything really. Yeah, between days 1 through 5. Yeah, it looks like you're outside of those risk areas, so you're good. Anyways, let's see. Stormfront says, Brother Andrew, put those hype shades on, brother. You got it. You got it, bro. I can't keep a straight face. Bro, I tried to, act all serious. I can't. But yeah, we'll throw them on. Why not? But anyways, it's time for the shades to come on because of the event. Now, the real reason I actually sometimes wear the shades on stream is because of the fact that the bright lights tends to mess with my vision quite a bit, especially from having all 4 of these monitors, shooting to be 5. Yeah, it makes things a little bit crazy. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, you guys know the drill. Do not hesitate to ask. I'll be more than happy to help you guys. Stay weather aware and stuff like that. We're here to help. Once again, just back to back days worth of severe weather, 5 days, technically 6 days worth of severe weather here if you count tomorrow. But, we got to be really weather aware, especially starting on Wednesday. Wednesday is going to be a pretty big day from the way that it looks. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday is going to be the biggest day, like we mentioned here. Once again, I'll actually go ahead and bring up the kinematics once again. The lower level wind shear, 850 millibar winds here, which this is roughly about 4,000 foot up. But winds are a good 40, 50 knots across the Midwest here. This is 7 p.m. on Friday. You can see that we have a really strong lower level jet here. And what's also overhead as well if we look at our dew points once again, these dew points you can see are in the in the 60s. So great moisture advection. A lot of that moisture coming up from the Gulf here. So that's there. Check that off. Strong wind shear looks pretty darn good here. Another thing is the instability. The unstable environment itself, which if you look at the instability overlay, we have a good 500 to 1,000 joules per kilogram, which isn't an absurd amount of, is not an absurd amount of instability, but it's enough to get the job done, But there is some areas that actually do go up a little bit more. You can see it, especially up by like Oklahoma, Texas. Probably steeper lapse rates, better moisture advection, which is probably contributing to higher Cape values. But yeah, I mean, there's enough instability there as well. So check off the moisture, check off the kinematics, check off the instability. The last thing is lift. Simply from the the turbulent boundary layer itself. I mean, we're going to have some pretty, likely some pretty decent diurnal heating going on, which, in that warm sector, we're going to have some, the sun's really going to heat the surface up, which is going to make things very turbulent, which could, for one, fire off some cells on its own. And there could be some other sources of lift involved in this as well. But yeah, so definitely looks pretty good. Looks like a decent little setup here. Let's actually bring up our accumulated wind gusts here. I do want to look at those. These are max accumulated wind gusts. Yeah, it's probably going to get pretty windy as well. Non-thunderstorm winds. You can kind of see that, a lot of the Midwest, Ohio Valley, between now and pretty much Friday. Yeah, between now and really Saturday. Between now and Saturday, I mean, we could see some pretty strong winds here, good 30, 40 mile an hour wind gusts, throughout the week. Not every day, but in accumulation to who could see these winds, good 30 to 40 miles an hour through a lot of the plains, Midwest, Ohio Valley, with this storm system kind of rolling through. But anyways, thank you, Haley. I appreciate it. Sewing says thank you. You are very welcome. Very, very welcome. Calvin says, I'm watching your stream on my new Dell laptop right now. The stream never buffering, and I enjoy. Well, that's good. Well, enjoy your laptop. Hope it does you well. But anyways, everybody, well, like I said, we just definitely need to be weather aware here for really the next several days. Just keep a close eye on it. Once again, this is Wednesday's threat. You can see the threat actually extends all the way into the Ohio Valley. Folks up in Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, a little bit of Louisiana needs to be on the lookout here for severe weather. So this is on, like I said, this is here for Wednesday. Then, of course, we go into Thursday. Thursday we have bits of western Oklahoma, central and northern Texas here. Then we go into Friday, which includes bits of northern Texas, going through a lot of the state of Oklahoma, a lot of central eastern Kansas, northern and western Missouri, and southern Iowa here for Friday. And then, of course, Saturday, we have the hot dog risk once again here for pretty much northern and central Texas, southeast Oklahoma, and a little bit of southwestern Arkansas. Anyways, Aaron says, am I going to be on tomorrow and Wednesday? Yep, we're going to be live every day that severe weather happens. Tomorrow for coverage, I don't know if we're going to do like full-on weather coverage tomorrow. I mean, we do have this marginal risk tomorrow, but the only concern for tomorrow's marginal risk is actually just hail, just some marginalized hail. I don't think I'm going to do coverage tomorrow, but what I will stream tomorrow to give you guys updates on the other days. The only way I'd go live during this event is if there is, a pretty big upgrade. Maybe if there is like a 2% tornado risk added, which I don't think there will be. But if there was, then maybe either that or if it got upgraded to like a slight risk or something, and yeah, we'll go live for it. But I don't plan on coverage tomorrow, but I do plan on giving you guys heads up for especially Wednesday to Saturday, for all this upcoming severe weather ahead of that. Anyways, But yeah, guys, if y'all have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. Feel free to let us know in the chat below. Calvin says, do normally early spring whenever there's a threat for severe weather? Is there always cloudy skies during the day, limit instability? So a lot of it's not in the fact that it really limits instability. It's more of breaking the capping inversion. More of breaking that warm layer in the lower atmosphere that prevents storms from convecting. That's the main part about cloud cover. With before the events happen. Now, that's not every event that happens. It's not every event that does that. There's some events that it's perfectly clear in the warm sector, and then you have other events that are pretty cloudy. But the cloudiness does hurt convection quite a bit. It lowers the max potential temperature on the surface as well, which could limit the convection itself. And like I said, not to mention also the main thing, the capping inversion. It really just comes down to the event because not every event's the same. It's different for everyone. Anyways, Carol says, what day/night looks the worst for North Texas for hail, and what time frame? So, that's actually a really good question. So tomorrow we don't have much of anything going on for hail. We do have that little margin of risk here. Mostly a hail threat for Oklahoma, Kansas. Day 3, I'm gonna have to do a bit of a model analysis here. Here, let's hop over to models, and we'll bring up the GFS once again. I do kind of want to pull this up. We'll look at the soundings. So you said for worse for North Texas for hail. So I'm just gonna randomly pick an area up in North Texas, and we're gonna pull the soundings here, and we're gonna start on Wednesday. So I can go through the sounding here. Wednesday. The GFS shows a little bit of a capping inversion, which could actually, hurt storms from forming, at least maybe limit storm development. So then we go into Thursday, a little bit of a capping inversion as well. But say if storms were to happen, Thursday there could be, which I don't think, wait, does Thursday have a threat for Dallas-Fort Worth area? I think it's actually west of Dallas. On Thursday. But one thing I do notice, though, is that we have a pretty dry mid-level atmosphere, which, does help in terms of hail generation. A good amount of instability through our mid-levels and stuff like that. But one thing is the wind shear is pretty weak and stuff like that could affect, the overall structure of the storm, which could be short-lived. Hail couldn't loft for as long of a period of time, because the thing about hail is that it lofts. You have an updraft, that warm air that's rising, it actually holds hail, and the hail just kind of floats, right? The strong updraft is keeping that hail upright, so it just floats. And then you have super cold water, which is water droplets that cling on to the hail and kind of develop it in layers. It's like a big gobstopper, basically. You have layer after layer being gradually grown until the hail becomes so big that the updraft can't handle the weight of it anymore, and then it falls to the surface. Either that or the updraft weakens in total. But yeah, dry mid-levels really is important for hail generation and stuff like that, especially with instability. But the problem here is wind shear. It doesn't seem like our winds are really that strong at all. So Thursday, I could see some hail potential. But anyways, Friday, a really, really big, that's actually pretty early, a pretty big capping inversion. But as we get diurnal heating, everything heats up quite a bit by the evening. You can see that we have less of a dry mid-level atmosphere, so Friday's threat for hail would probably be a little bit lower. If I was to guess, or not really guess, but, give my take on this, I would say between Thursday, thermodynamically is the best for hail. Friday, wind shear kinematically would be best for hail. So between Thursday and Friday, now I can't give you a timing because this is still long range guidance here. This could be totally inaccurate, the timing. So we're just not even going to bother yet. We'll wait till the short range models come through, HRRR, stuff like that. But anyways, but yeah, we'll have to see. We'll definitely. I personally think between probably Thursday would have the best potential for hail out there. Yeah, I would have to say Thursday. Anyways, what's up, Dixie? Good to see ya. Hope you're doing good, my friend. Hope all is well with ya. What's up, Rain? Good to see ya. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, Aaron. Like I said, we're gonna go live every day. We'll be live every day of the event here. Like I said, this event starts technically tomorrow because we have that margin risk tomorrow. Then the big days start on Wednesday. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We all have 15% risk areas, which is pretty crazy. Yeah, I mean it's going to be pretty active. It's going to be quite active overall. But yeah, let's actually hop back over here to to those SPC outlooks here once again. So starting off, on Wednesday, the first big day. The overall severe weather threat includes the brown and the yellow areas here. So, the overall severe weather threat goes up into the Ohio Valley, even like southwestern Ohio and whatnot. But yeah, we do have that 5% risk here that does go all the way up towards the Midwest, the Ohio Valley. But on Wednesday, the biggest concern is going to be here for western Arkansas, southeast Oklahoma, and northeast Texas, with that 15% severe weather risk that we have, which is that slight risk level 2 threat. So then we go into Thursday. Thursday, we have a bit of a concern for the central northern side of Texas, western Oklahoma. I think, given the soundings that we were just looking at, I think hail could be one of the main primary threats here. Kinematics are going to be pretty weak. Our horizontal wind shear is going to be pretty weak. Storm duration should be pretty short-lived, given the fact that we're not getting much effective separation between our intake and our outtake, the updraft and downdrafts. But like I said, dry mid-levels, decent mid-level cape, stuff like that really contributes to potential, hail growth and stuff like that. But, if your updraft literally collapses on itself, the storms will be very short-lived, and you'll start ingesting cold air into the storm, which will kill it out immediately. But I don't know. But I personally, I think Thursday could be a bit of a hail threat. Anyways, but yeah, Thursday, central northern Texas, including portions of the Panhandle, western Oklahoma, and the risk here, level 2 threat. Then we go into Friday. Now, Friday, hands down, in my opinion, is going to be the biggest day. Tornado potential, damaging wind potential. I mean, all the above, I think could be a big concern on Friday. Mostly damaging winds following that tornado threat, I think we'll have a bit of a concern here. And like I said, the main reason why is because out of all days, between now and Saturday, out of all days, Friday has the greatest amount of wind shear. So the winds are the strongest on Friday, which is really going to allow for these storms to be pretty well organized, from the wind shear, separating once again, the updraft from your downdraft, and, just keeping the storm in a closed cycle there, because obviously, like I said, if you have no winds in the atmosphere, that rising air that's going straight vertical has to come back down as it cools down, so it's going to collapse right on itself. So yeah, but given that there is strong wind shear, it'll keep storms probably pretty long-lived. Also, strong lower level wind shear contributes to, in some cases, and in this case especially, tornadic activity. That lower level veering wind shear, very important for tornadoes and stuff like that. But anyways, yeah, bottom line, Friday is going to be the big day, I think, including northern Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth area, going through Oklahoma, including the Oklahoma City, Tulsa area. Let's see, also going up here into, central and eastern Kansas, northern, western Missouri here, as well as, basically southern Iowa and stuff like that. So that is that. That is that. But anyways, Calvin says, how did the capping inversion develop? So the capping inversion is just simply a warm layer in the lower atmosphere. Think of the atmosphere as a stack of pancakes, right? You got different layers, right? So it just so happens that the the lower level has a warmer air, the lower levels, where the capping inversion is actually warmer. So the capping inversion, it's basically where, whenever you have a storm that fires off in a capped environment, you have the warm air rising into the cooler environment. But the problem is that when you hit a cap, that rising warm air, the temperature of the rising warm air actually gets equal to the temperature of the air around it. which stops that warm air from rising, and it can really kind of act like a wall to stop thunderstorms from really developing and stuff. Um, but it's just simply a warm layer in the lower atmosphere. Overall, diurnal heating, like I said, basically just daylight heating, heating up the surface and stuff like that should hopefully, well, in the storm's sake, break the cap and get those storms firing off there. But anyways. But yeah, guys, if y'all have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. Haley says, how warm does it have to be for a tornado to develop? That's actually a good question. So, typically, like I was mentioning, for severe weather and stuff like that, you want your dew points, at least, it can happen in the 50s and stuff, but you really want your dew points in the 60s and all. There's a lot of things. It's not just as simple as saying it's this warm to have a tornado. There's a lot of different things that's in play here. Storm base, how basically how close that storm bottom is to the ground. It matters a lot. It's very, very important for one. Also, we have, the wind shear, how strong the winds are in the lower atmosphere and what direction they're changing in tells a lot about the kinematics and the potential for spin in the environment. And then, of course, you have the instability itself, the unstable environment. You get instability from lapse rates, which is the rate at which temperature drops with altitude, which directly affects the buoyancy of an air parcel, which basically is just the rising warm air column we're talking about in the beginning of a thunderstorm. So basically just that warm air going up into the cold environment here. And then there's a lot more to it, like latent heat and stuff like that, but I'm not going to get into all that right now. But yeah. There's a lot of different things. It's not just one. It's just not just it's 60 degrees. Okay, it's enough for a tornado. No, there's a lot that's into it. And I touched up on the main ones, mostly kinematics. Thermodynamics are the main thing. Instability, moisture levels, wind shear. These all play a huge role in how tornadoes form. And also, you got to remember that there is different things going on at different levels of the atmosphere. Like, for an example, on the surface, the temperature could be like, 70 degrees, dew point 63, whatever. And you go up at the atmosphere, that cools down, as you go up higher. For one, the pressure, drops and, and all that stuff. And yeah. Anyways, I'm not going to go too in depth with all that now. Anyways, Aaron, didn't you ask that before? If they're going to upgrade to a 3 out of 5 on Friday, given kinematics, given the moisture level, it's possible. But, it's really up to the SPC. You should really go off of the outlooks from the Storm Prediction Center. I could tell you that it's certainly possible. But, we'll just have to see. We'll have to see how it goes. Anyways, see, Roby says one of the coldest temperature tornadoes on record occurred on November 23rd, 2013 in Ontario, Canada, where an EF1 quote-unquote snow tornado was documented with temperatures around 28. Wow. That's pretty crazy. So in that environment, what goes through my head is that the storm or that the lapse rates had to have been absolutely ridiculous. Like, what I mean by that is, like, you go up a little bit in altitude, I'm sure that temperature is warm, and then you go down and it's cold. A bit of an inversion there, honestly. That I would love to have seen a sounding from that event. That's actually really crazy. Angel says, if a tornado warned cell is coming towards you in a northeast direction, can't you just drive southeast to avoid? It depends on how close you are to the suspected tornado. If you're like right up on it, then you probably don't have enough time to get into your car and leave. But obviously, yeah, it depends how close you are to it. Essentially, has a lot to do with it. Also, another thing about traveling in a tornado warning, say if you want to get out, there could be some down trees and down power lines and stuff like that you could run into. So it's best if you're in a tornado warning just to seek shelter in what you have. Whether that being a basement or a storm shelter or just really the central interior portion on the lowest floor of your home is definitely really really busy. Calvin, we're gonna hold off on the climatology side. I'm not trying to get too too off topic here. Yeah, this stream we're mostly just focusing on what's coming up here. What's coming up here pretty soon. But yeah, I mean, with El Nino and stuff like that, I mean, obviously, yeah, the Pacific Oscillation causes huge weather pattern changes and stuff like that. But we're not going to get too much into the climatology today. Anyways, let's see. If it looks like it's not moving, it's heading straight for you. Or it's going the opposite direction from you. Yeah. If it's getting bigger and it's not moving, then it's coming towards you. But if it gets smaller and it's not moving, then it's going away from you. Yeah. Jacob says, how bad is the weather? From a scale of 1 to 10, for the entire, it depends if we're taking it day by day or by the whole day's worth of events. Friday, I'd say it's a good 6 out of 10. Setup, it's decent. Good lower level wind shear, good moisture advection, good amounts of instability. Should have enough lift. It's decent. I think Friday is going to be the biggest day. I do, and like I said, the reason why is mostly a wind shear thing. Introducing that wind shear is possibly going to help organize these storms and everything. Let's see here. Angel says, it's just we have no storm shelter in manufactured home, 6 kids. Oh, okay. Yeah, so, Angel, do you want me to look at your specific area to let you know what you're in for? Because, I mean, if you're going to be in that tornado threat, is there anybody that you know who has a basement or maybe a storm shelter? It probably wouldn't be a bad idea maybe to go hang out with them for the day, just to be safe. I mean, it's always good to have a plan in place, So, but yeah, Jacob, it's going to be pretty active. I'll tell you that. Once again, the big day, quote unquote, starts on Wednesday. On Wednesday here. That level 2 threat for portions of Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, the level 1 marginal going up into the Ohio Valley, including like Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas, the other states as well. And then, of course, we go into Thursday, Oklahoma, Texas, Friday, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, portions of Iowa, and then we go into Saturday, which includes Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. We see a lot of Texas and Oklahoma being repeated, so, yeah. See, Angel says in Columbus, Indiana. Gotcha. Well, the good news is that, honestly, I think a lot of the biggest part of the event is going to be west of Indiana in general. You being in Columbus, here, I could bring up the models and see. Let's do that, actually. Here, let's pull up the mixed layer cape, and we'll go through. Yeah, so you can see here for Saturday, we have little bits and traces of instability, but honestly, I think the main tornado threat is going to be farther west than you. Honestly, I wouldn't worry too much. Let's try most unstable cape here. That changes things up a little bit. That just picks the most unstable layer. So we'll just randomly grab a sounding. This is 7 p.m. on Friday. We'll just see what the environment looks like here. Let's see. So this is the GFS model. This is the 18 UTC. If it'll ever load, that would be nice. Maybe we'll try it again here. There we go. I don't know why that one wouldn't load in here. So yeah, this is Friday evening. I mean, the environment looks a little bit interesting. I'm not going to take the global models too serious here. I mean, they give me a good idea of what things could look like, but I really want to wait and see what the short range models look like. Once again, But I do see some veering wind shear. There is a bit of a curvature on our photographs here, but the wind shear values themselves aren't significantly strong. Say if we did have tornadoes, they would likely be on the weaker scale, more than likely. Given weaker wind shear and stuff like that. Calvin says, do most supercells supercell storms turn to the right instead of moving on the original track? Well, there's different types of supercells. You got left movers, you got right movers, but right movers are more dominant. Yeah. If that's what you're talking about, yeah, then yeah, there's different types. Jacob says, do I think that or do I think it'll upgrade to an enhanced risk on Friday? Yeah, like I said, it depends on the SPC. It's really up to the Storm Prediction Center, but in my opinion, I think it's possible. I do. I'm gonna grab a sounding here. This is for Friday evening up in Oklahoma. This is where we have some of the strongest instability. I really think it is going to be a good possibility that we will. I mean, let's look at the fat cape that we have here. I mean, there is a really good amount of instability. There's a lot of unstable air. The wind shear environment here seems pretty strong. I mean, good level, good, just good wind shear in general. Yeah, I mean, good moisture advection, good amounts of moisture being available for these storms, good wind shear, good instability. Yeah, I mean, it seems like a decent little environment here. Really steep lapse rates too. So, yeah. I do think it is certainly possible that Friday could turn into an enhanced risk, which we'll see. See, the thing is that the higher north you go, the stronger the wind shear gets. The further south you go, the stronger the instability is. So it's fine. It's really that middle area, which really comes out to be like Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri. That could be in the big concern area for Friday, in which that really lines up with the risk that we have here, which makes sense. But yeah, typically the instability is a little bit more stronger further south. Steeper lapse rates, more moisture content. Cape convective available potential energy is determined based off of lapse rates. The rate at which temperature drops over altitude, as well as moisture content. I think there's a couple other things that it includes as well. Other variables too, but mostly lapse rates and moisture. See, next fall can't come quick enough. What do you mean? We have to go through summertime. We need summer. We need spring. Anyways, but yeah, y'all. But I think I'm probably gonna roll off here pretty soon. Like I said, if y'all have any questions, do not hesitate to ask here. But yeah, I think I'm probably gonna call it a stream soon. Yeah, tomorrow though, we'll definitely be here to cover or to go over the upcoming severe weather events. We'll have more model data by tomorrow. We'll maybe learn a little bit more about the event tomorrow. Stuff like that. We'll be here to help you. Jacob says, how bad will tornadoes be on Wednesday and Friday? Friday's going to have better potential for bigger and stronger tornadoes versus Wednesday. Wednesday, if we get tornadoes, they would likely be on the weaker side. Once again, bringing up our 850 millibar wind shear for Wednesday. So, if we go into the afternoon and evening, I mean, we don't have much of a lower level jet here. Maybe some areas have a good 30 knots or so. But let me overlay the instability here as well, which will do most unstable cape. Yep. So let's grab one up by the Dallas-Fort Worth area for 4 p.m. on Wednesday. So yeah, the thing about Wednesday versus Friday, looking at our lower level profiles here on the on our wind barbs here, you can see that there is some veering going on. So there is some change in wind direction. And an increase in wind speed with altitude. So, yeah, maybe a couple isolated weak tornadoes could occur for Wednesday. But, once you go into Friday, that lower level jet really strengthens here. which that's gonna kind of enable potential stronger tornadoes and stuff. Yeah, because lower level winds are a little bit stronger overall. Anyways. Roby says, thank you, Andrew. Peace to all. Stay safe. You too, Roby. Thank you. I really appreciate it. But yeah, guys, if y'all have any final comments or any questions, feel free to let me know. I'll be more than happy to help you guys. But once again, I appreciate y'all. Appreciate ya. But yeah, we'll see you guys tomorrow at some point. It'll likely be sometime tomorrow evening here. So just make sure you turn on those notifications. That way you do get notified. Calvin says, does severe weather happen when the area is not in the risk for severe weather? It can. Although the expected severe weather is the severe weather is expected to be in the risk area. That's why we have the risk area. But yeah, I mean, it can happen outside. There has been multiple times where it's happened outside of the outlook area. Yeah, it's not as common because we typically kind of know what the environment looks like. But anyways, let's see. Jacob says, will it be bad for Dover, Arkansas? Let me pull up Dover. Let's see here. Dover, Arkansas. So, okay. Coming up on Friday. So, yeah, the risk is mostly west of you. Matter of fact, your main day is I think it's going to be on Wednesday. It could be strong to potentially severe. Yeah, it seems like Wednesday is going to be your greatest potential out there. But the thing about Wednesday is, like I said, the wind shear is kind of weaker per se, and all that stuff. But anyways, all right, everybody. Well, thank you all for joining. I appreciate y'all for stopping by and hanging out with us. If y'all did enjoy this, be sure to leave a like, hit that subscribe button. It'd be much appreciated. And alrighty, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining. We'll see y'all here for tomorrow. And y'all please stay safe out there. Try not to worry about the event. We'll get over it. Or, not get over it. It sounded bad. But we'll get through it is what I meant to say. I apologize. But anyways. All right, Masters. I got your thing real quickly, and then I'm going to roll off, all right? So, Ozark, Missouri. Yeah, you're out there by Springfield area. Yeah, I mean, Ozark, Missouri could be definitely involved in potential severe weather. Wednesday, you're directly in that level 1 threat. You're not in the risk for Thursday. Friday, you're actually outside of the risk area, but we'll keep an eye on it for Friday. Saturday, you're not in the risk. So mainly Wednesday is going to be the day that you need to look out for. Gusty winds, stuff like that could be a bit of a concern overall. All right, everybody. Thank you all for joining. You all take care. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your night. And we'll see you guys here for tomorrow. All right, everybody. Peace out, my friends. See ya later on.